Yes, this is the first reading. That second date for later. Can't be next meeting, 10 day. So it would be end of the month.
Call the meeting to order. Start with pledge of allegiance. United States of America. To the republic and stand one nation under God. Roll call.
Mochler.
Here.
Graylobe.
Here.
Brady.
Here.
Teasy.
Here.
Gilbertson.
Here.
Any conflict of interest declarations? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of, in the discussion area, county budget. And then, the 9:05 timeline where it says zone administrator to Noah.
Yeah. Old habits die hard.
So. Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I have not had time to, review budget. So we can.
We won't be making any
Yeah,
decisions.
make some light, I'm interested in hearing other people's thoughts about it, but there's
I
a
don't
lot
know
in
if
there.
anybody has, I haven't either.
So, and I know the public was not aware that we would be discussing that.
Will there be no decisions
No
or
decision.
anything made on it?
All right, sounds good.
Anything, hearing anything else? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Approval of minutes. So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Visitors to be heard. No?
Good.
Yep,
Right.
it's 9:05.
Sounds good. All right. So in front of you is the proposed Clay County Comprehensive Plan of 2025 to 2045. So the one in front of you is gonna be the actual adopted one we would take as a county. The ones I sent you in the email would be the red line version. Those would be the changes made. But going over it, the acknowledgement of the comprehensive plan, kind of just saying, hey, this is what we acknowledge. Edits for the staff, just had a typo on carry. Table of contents. Just edited page numbers. All right, and then going through and table or chapter 1, the introduction. Purpose of a comprehensive plan is pretty much, like I always like to say, it's kind of like a bowling alley with your bumper lanes. It's supposed to keep you in your left and right. This is what, Clay County kind of stands for. Don't go too far one way or the other. It's not supposed to be law. It's just a guiding principle. And then it goes over the area of communication, all that fun stuff.
That's real quick, just to some of the description in here. So I know that the last plan was, met with some fairly stiff resistance from the community when it was presented. So, what process was used to develop this one? There's a note about like a comprehensive plan committee. So was that
Right,
different
so-
than the planning and zoning
we
committee
took-
or?
Yeah, so we took what the feedback from the last, the 2021 and 2022 comprehensive plan, took the feedback from that. So some of the big ticket items were the parks, and the rural areas. We added those back in, it was in, the previous one, so, added that back in. Having the Spirit Mound. The only difference between this one, and the 2001 one is the parks that, the city of Vermillion absorbed. So that would be in the city of Vermillion's map, not ours. So just because two separate ones. So for the parks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. And when we get to the park section, I had a couple questions about some of that, so, yeah.
Yep, no problem. Going over, since 2001, some of the schools have definitely changed. The Viper Curley, Irene Wakanda, Gabe O'Ballin, those have all changed since then. So we updated those.
I had some questions in the description of the study area too, so I note that it says that the Clay County Comprehensive Plan excludes the incorporated areas of Vermillion, Wakanda, and Irene. And it excludes the Clay Vermillion Joint Jurisdictional Planning Area, so I had some question about that, as I think certainly it makes sense that our planning and zoning responsibilities would fall outside of that study area, but it's kind of a mishmash as I go through the document as to what is included from within the city of Vermillion and what isn't. We've got demographic information, which is a lot is relevant to things that are in the city of Vermillion. I think that from a developer's point of view, the city of Vermillion is quite important if you're making decisions where you might develop in the county. So I was just wondering about how those lines were drawn. I mean, we don't note city of Vermillion power, city of Vermillion water when we're talking about the infrastructure that's available, some things
Well,
like that. So I was
We
just
do
curious.
actually.
We do.
Yeah, so we
Okay.
actually annotate how the city of Vermillion has a wastewater treatment center.
Right. So I saw that the wastewater side was on
Right.
there, but not the water supply. So I was just wondering about,
Right,
yeah,
because those are gonna be city utilities. It's not gonna be county utilities,
yeah,
they're separate.
They'll have the-
sure.
Yeah, right,
Yeah.
just like city has its own municipality, its own code, right? County has its own.
Yeah. I guess what I was seeing though is that it does not really seem that we exclude the areas of Vermillion throughout the document. We excluded a certain area. So I was just wondering how
Right, yeah.
how that line got drawn.
Yeah, it's just some areas don't need it, right? So we're not including it. We include it in the census because obviously the people of Vermillion, towards Clay County, they vote for all of you guys. They count towards the county.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's kind of how we dictate that.
Okay.
So,
Hey, Noah, before you go
yes, sir.
too much farther on that intergovernmental considerations, the section 4 for townships,
Yes, sir.
You've got
what
Riv-
page again?
H2,
Thank you.
Oh,
you've got Riverside Star,
yeah,
and they should be separated.
yeah, I see that.
Good catch, Clay.
Okay, yeah. I brought a red pen. just for
Okay.
That reason.
Just hit enter.
Yep, that's it. Yep. Yep, and then, the description of the study, yes, 80% of the residents of Clay County do reside in Vermillion. We acknowledge that. It also, we acknowledge that the USD kind of influx the population of Vermillion. So, it is noted
Yeah.
that there is a fluctuation there. So when you look at the demographics, coming up on the next page, on page 4. You'll actually see there's quite a big difference in the age population, for the college age compared to the rest of the ages. There was a small shrinkage between the ages of 20 and 54 by 3 people. So,
Was that?
yeah, right. But once again, we got these informations from the Census Bureau. So, yeah. Page 5, once again, just pretty much acknowledging, future growth.
So on page 5, I did, I think that there may be an inaccuracy, so. If you take a look at your graphic, kind of what cued me in, so in the text, it says the low forecast, this is the top paragraph, the low forecast is based on the change between 2010 and 2020. And the high forecast was the rate of change between 2000 and 2020. So that implies that our rate of population growth was lower in 2010 to 2020 versus the whole period of 2000 to 2020 averaged out. And if you look at the graph here, the rate of change in that section between 2010 and 2020 is higher than the rate of change in the 2000 to 2010. So I think we just have a little bit of language we need to switch around up at the top. I'm assuming that all the numbers are accurate in here. I just wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, there
point that out.
is, 2020 was also a weird exodus year. Blame COVID if you want, between the
Yeah.
major cities exiting from California, Colorado, all what have you, to say South Dakota, Nebraska.
Yeah, and I'm
And so
trusting.
this is where
I'm trusting the numbers here, but I'm seeing a discrepancy between the description in text of
Okay.
what the numbers represent in the graph. Or how the graph is representing those numbers and what we're seeing like in the chart. If you go back to the previous page, you had a population growth of 7.96% listed under 2020, so I'm assuming that's 2010 to 2020, and then you had 2.4% listed in 2010, so I'm assuming that's 2000 to 2010. So I think we just have that. Is that your reading as well, Nick?
I'm seeing that as well, yeah, cause in a lot of the,
Oh, well.
yeah, cause a lot of the time you'll see the 20 years, what you would represent as the low, just cause it's more. Just kind of provides more of an accurate, just 20 years, it's gonna show more of a consistent growth, and then that 10 years gonna be. As you can see here, that's more of a sharp increase, I see what you're saying.
So like that green one appears to be continuing the trend line from 2010 to 2020, and the orange appears to be continuing an average trend line of those of the previous 20 years. So I think that the orange one is, I think they're probably both right, but the green one should be labeled 2010. And we don't want to give people the false impression that our growth is slowing if it's doing the opposite, right? Yeah.
Going over to economy. Just the types of employment that there are in Clay County. As you can see in 2023, there is an increase in the agriculture, fishing, hunting and mining. Construction has gone up or has gone down since 2010. Just fluctuation with jobs that have come in and out of Clay County. So just representing that in the economy page. Going into the unemployment, we went into the labor force. We also added, the unemployed, rate for us and then versus the state.
And I thought that I saw a discussion point at some point that said something about the unemployment rate, the higher unemployment rate possibly being related to the university
It
as
could
well.
be, yes.
Yeah, but is that listed in here? or
No,
not?
sir. I mean,
I thought I saw that somewhere, but I guess I just didn't. So, all right, thank you.
all right, infrastructure and assessment, breaking down the roads.
Yeah,
It's not much has changed from the previous one to the current one or the proposed one. Yeah, I mean, we still have 50, the Meckling, the Bluff, all those fun roads, projects. Just a list of projects that have been going on, in Clay County and or adjacent to Clay County that might be relevant to us.
so are these like some I-29 projects?
Yes, so because the I-29 is, right next to Clay County, I mean, it's a stone's throw away from all of the off-ramps for us. I mean, it's kind of relevant for us for future growth. So having all those listed,
Yeah.
just saying, hey, we're growing as a community. So
Is the box down towards the bottom in the 2026 route for seal, is that supposed to be I-29P?
Yep. Yep.
Well, that's why we have so many eyes.
I know.
Yeah, no, I've looked
Take
at.
10 eyes to.
Yeah, I don't know, I've probably
catch
looked at
half.
this like a lot. Railroads, we just went ahead and added railroads into the actual, comprehensive plan. We have them, might as well state we have them, you know. Water facilities, once again, just kind of stating, hey, Claymore Water is the main water area in our county. They service, you know, the Wakanda, Gayville, Meckling, Burbank, all those fun things. Going into the wastewater, our main wastewater for the county is going to be the septic tanks. We'll get to that page when we get it for the maps. I'll explain why the map looks like it does. But then it goes into Irene Wakanda having their lagoons, and then Vermillion having the wastewater treatment center itself.
Yeah, and I heard in the discussion at the planning zoning level, adding in that this actually has a treatment system.
Yes, so,
Description of that.
yep, and then so that's actually annotated in the red line.
I was wondering about, you know, this was one of the areas where I was wondering about some of the decisions about where we drew the lines, because I did think that, you know, having City of Vermillion municipal water supply with different rates, different source might be something that would be relevant to someone who's considering development here. If they look at this, they might think this says Clay Rural Water serves the entire county, so they might assume that that is serving the City of Vermillion as well. So I thought, you know, maybe just a line or two explaining that we also have City of Vermillion municipal water, which services their, you know, population within the city limits, might be worthwhile.
Right, but that would fall under the Vermillion comprehensive plan.
Well, I was just thinking along
Yeah.
the same lines that we note that Vermillion uses a wastewater treatment system, you know, that it would just be just giving a more full picture of if someone's considering developing here, what are the various, you know, particularly what are the various entities they might want to reach out to, check different rates on, you know, just to get a full picture of what's available here.
Going over Clay Rural, or the rural electric, Clay Union, stating that their primary source in the county.
And similarly, I thought, you know, mentioning that the City of Vermillion has municipal power supplies. Maybe important information for people for that. Oh, and then I think I can interpret the colors on the street plan now. That was,
Yes, this is
I
once
thought we
again,
had two grays, but we don't, no.
once again, why I printed it off.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, if you look, you have going into Vermillion, you have the major collectors. You know, you have the Bluff, which is gonna be a minor collector. Granted, you know, we have the landfill on the Bluff, so for the county, that's gonna be, you know, a focal point. That's gonna help the commission and or developers kind of see where the oil roads are gonna be located for future growth. So,
And so the one principal arterial is the little bit of 19 that goes down to Nebraska, is that right? South of Vermillion?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. I was wondering about that in the other draft. I couldn't tell the difference between that pale lavender and light gray.
and then going into the schools, we just went ahead and updated the Vermillion school system. And Beersford. Updating the Irene Wakanda, inputting how much square miles of Clay County each of them actually incorporate. So when people are moving into Clay County, they go, oh, if I move into this area from this city, what are the odds I'm gonna be in here? Granted, yes, we have open enrollment, however, what's the natural enrollment for the county? This kind of helps cover that for the square miles. You know, drop a pin, pull it over. Also kind of going over just what the schools did, annotating how Vermillion did update their schools. Irene stuck in their new construction after we typed this up for tearing down their old building, so didn't type it in. Y'all want me to add it in? And however, it happened after it was typed up. Now going over into the part that was removed and then added back into the current presented draft is going to be the parks and open spaces. So in total, Clay County Parks is 198 acres in area with an additional 111 acre run by the state. And it kind of just state where they're located at. So just once again, hey, we have parks here. We're not just farms all around us. We acknowledge we have parks. So
Yeah, that was good. There was a few additional things that I think could be added pretty easily too. We have game production areas. We've got the 2 boat launches, mentioning both Mulberry Bend and Clay County Park, I think are both very desirable. I even thought that I saw we had the federal lands listed, so you have North Alabama Bend on there, which I think is great. I think that getting those additional state public use areas, like a lot of people love fishing down at Gunderson Backwater down there, so I think that those are wonderful. They're available, and I think they're a draw. And I thought that even, thinking again about where we're drawing the line between what amenities of the city of Vermillion we might highlight and what we might not mention. I thought even putting a line in there saying the city of Vermillion has like a robust park department with, say, so however many acres. I'm sure John probably knows off the top of his head, but the city of Vermillion, has so and so many acres of parks that they manage within the city of Vermillion. So I think that, those are big draws for people. So I think that, making sure that we're highlighting them and bragging about them as much as we can is a good idea. So you'd even mention in Clay County Park, we've got a rodeo grounds, we've got
yeah.
So
And then the map just kind of stating where on here they're actually located. Just east of Wakanda there, you have the game production area. Hopefully grow the northern side of the county more.
mhm.
So.
Yeah, and I thought that was an area too where were you to add anything like, I see you do have the game production area. I think I was looking at an earlier iteration of the map that I didn't see that on, but
Yep.
yeah. But so I'm glad that that's in there, and I see the one down by Frost Trail. I'd say go ahead and put the North Alabama Bend on there. It's a huge site. It's like 500 acres or something. So
And we can add that in too, later on.
right.
Yep. If it develops into more, we can always add it too.
Yeah, so like between now and next year, we could discuss more
Correct.
about how we'd like that section to be more robust, and that would be considered like a minor edit to come back and
Correct.
say,
And-
we're gonna add some
Yep.
things to the park area.
Yep, and then, in good practice, it's you review this once every 5 years, you review the comprehensive plan. And it kind of goes over in the actual beginning half where it says every 5 years, you kind of do a small review going, hey,
Yeah, I thought,
updating maps, parks, cities, did the city expand? Did, say Wakanda grows by 1,000 people and they grow 3 miles in each direction. Well, the county map will look a little bit different to, what it is now.
Yep.
All right, environmental constraints. Physical geology or geography, the floodplains, wetlands and soils. We're gonna go with the, we're in a basin, but we're also on hills because we have the bluff. So Clay County is a little bit unique in that sense. When you look at the floodplains itself, we use the FEMA floodplain map in that, and we use map 3 to demonstrate that. So the 100-year floodplain map, is what we use for FEMA, and this is the newest one, so this would be the 2020 FEMA map. This is the same one I use for doing permits, all that fun stuff. So, wetlands, we added that in, just saying, hey, this area is a little bit wet, a little bit more caution in that area. Nothing wrong with it, just annotating it, giving, guidance. And then pretty much it for the floodplains and wetlands. For the soils, I know this is kind of it looks scary. I can explain the map. I called the state about it. So it says somewhat limited, very limited. And what that means is by very limited is for the county and or not for the county, but for the state. When it requires a permit for a septic tank is when it's non-personal use. So if a business comes in, they have to go to the state and present their septic tank to the state. For an individual home buyer, a normal use septic tank is up to the home buyer. You just install it. When it comes to like a commercial building, so say a hotel, what have you, that's when the state starts getting involved. So that's what this, the very limited starts implying. It also goes into the slope, such as on page. Here we go. On page 15, it kind of describes what it is. So it's going to be the slow water movement, the flooding, depth of structured zones and seepage. And that's how the state determines. So, and once again, when I gave the state a phone call, pretty much the same answer I got from them.
Yeah, I gave them a call as well, and that jives pretty well with what I was hearing. That,
Yep.
When you're following state administrative rules, if you are installing a conventional system, which would mean a system that entirely matches follows the administrative rules, and that the percolation tests that you conduct and the soil borings that you conduct indicate that you're within the appropriate parameters, then you don't need anything from the state. And he made sure to clarify for me that the state does not issue permits for septic systems. They approve designs.
Right.
So a person is required under state law to have their design approved if the things they find when they do a percolation test or if they do a boring fall outside of the state administrative rules, then they need to get an approved plan because they no longer are doing a conventional system. They're doing a special system. So I think that my interpretation of these maps are, if you're in the pink area, then there's reason, so if you're in the pink area and you're building a home, and intending to build a conventional system, that this is indicating that there is a likelihood that you're going to find unfavorable results in your percolation tests or your soil borings. However, you need to do those either way.
Right.
And if you find that you're within parameters, as apparently every single person has since 2019, I was questioned that a little bit, that every single septic system installation in the county has, because I I was like, is this map accurate? And he pulled up his web survey, and he said the same thing. And he was also a little bit surprised, the person I talked to, that no building site in the county, that anyone had encountered percolation rates outside of the appropriate range, or had done soil borings, 8-foot deep soil borings, and not encountered anything that gave them pause there, like a high water table that would require a mound system or something like that. So apparently no mound systems have been built in the county since 2019, and every system has passed those tests. So, but yes, I agree with your interpretation of this map, and he was very clear that every septic system is, site specific. So you know exactly where you're going to put it. You need to do percolation tests. You need to do soil borings there, and whoever you are, if you want to follow the state law, you do need to do those things, but you don't need to tell the state you did them. So,
it's a case by case basis.
Does that jive with your understanding? Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions on that? Going into the aquifer map. this is just the material, aquifer material map. This is what is above the actual aquifer. I think this is pretty helpful for farmers in the area. And also home buyers if they want to tap a well. Just so they know how deep they actually have to go or what kind of materials they have to go through. So. All right, existing land use. We just gave definitions to what it is for the rural residential, agriculture, commercial, light industrial, general industrial, and then parks and open spaces. Before it just listed what we had in the county. Now it's, there's a small,
Yeah,
what are these?
that was a good addition.
Instead of individual interpretation. And then valuation of land use in the Clay County. I know during the planning zoning, the concerns of leapfrogging, came up. However, to a normal person, that doesn't make sense. We gave it an actual term saying, hey, let's go ahead and make sure it actually drives with the county with, if we're doing a rezone, that, the comprehensive plan says, hey, let's make sure it actually flows in the community and not just start throwing random stuff out there.
So, and when I'm looking on, map 6 here with the current land use, and then I'm seeing, the majority of the county is agriculture or residential. And I'm assuming there must be some density or something that determines, since these are, square blocks that aren't totally filled with houses, right? Or rectangular blocks. So what was the criteria where we decided we were gonna call a particular parcel residential versus?
It's just, if there's like, yeah, if there's like two houses there, back in the old day, you got 80 acres and A and B both got 80 acres and they put two houses there. So it's easier just to put it in yellow instead of trying to make a single pixel
So, okay, yeah,
yellow, just make a little bit bigger pixel yellow. So saying, yes, there's houses in this area, but yes, we are a farming community.
okay. Cause like I'm thinking most of that area that's yellow is also farmed fields,
Correct.
right?
Once again, we have the commercial lots, in the county along the oil roads. And it's annotated in the map.
And I think I would consider, on that map 6 as well, adding in that North Alabama bend there, I think being by the edge of Vermillion, that's another one I just consider it a very desirable, piece of ground out there, so. Apologize for.
No, on that map,
Yes, sir.
map 6. We're 305th Street, if you go from the west or the right side of the map, you go west. There's a purple dot where that road dead ends.
Not on mine.
My printer might have just,
Okay.
but yeah.
Cause I've got.
I noticed you have little dots all.
Yeah, my
over.
printer's on its last leg. So.
That's a frugal county right there. Good job,
Yeah.
everybody.
Yeah,
Okay,
Yeah,
Okay.
I'm making it stretch where I can.
thank you.
Yeah.
I think your magenta's give it out.
Had to wait about 5 minutes before we need to print.
Yeah, I was just wondering if I could do that.
About 360. That helps them.
All right, going into the planning policy framework. This is gonna be the goals and the guiding policies of the county. We have the transition areas, the agriculture areas, and the major highway corridors.
Yeah,
It-
go on.
Oh, what was your question?
Well, I had one that question in here, I think, in the growth management strategy, page 17. It says, these objectives and policy guidelines, together with the current zoning map and major street plan, form the comprehensive plan for the Clay County. However, my understanding is the zoning map is actually a part of our zoning ordinance. And since this is a document that justifies our zoning ordinance, I think we would want to say that the zoning map is not a part of our comprehensive plan. It is a part of our zoning ordinance. Is that?
So we adopt the map, the ordinance, and the comp plan. They're all independent, because when you update the map, right?
Yep.
So it's like you're updating I guess technically the ordinance as a whole. That's why you have to go through the whole rezone process.
Okay, yeah, so I'm just thinking about how the justification for our zoning authority flows. And my understanding of that is that state law uses this comprehensive plan to justify all of our further planning powers and zoning powers. And so I think that the zoning map is one step down that chain of authority. It is not a part of the comprehensive plan. It's justified by the comprehensive plan. So I think that in that sense, it would seem problematic to include it as a portion of the comprehensive plan, because its existence and authority is contingent upon the comprehensive plan. So you just end up in do you see an issue there? I don't know.
I understand your argument. It is circular.
It says together with.
Yeah.
Not separate.
I guess I read it differently.
Okay, and
I
yeah,
mean, I read it as there's three, because it's got the
It says together with.
because I think
objectives
if you
and
go to our,
policy guidelines.
I think if you go to our zoning ordinance, it says that the zoning map is a part of the zoning ordinance, which is why when we change boundaries, we have to go through a revision of the ordinance.
Yes,
Just
I think-
this provides direction.
yeah. Remember, this isn't law. This is more bumper lane.
Guideline.
You know, I'm only one vote, so if nobody
Yeah.
else has an issue with it, and if you feel that it's appropriate, then, you know, I'm not,
I would
yeah,
say that,
not trying to make an issue, I just was concerned that seems.
I think I understand your argument and like your logic makes sense to me, because well, for everything you just outlined, I also think that given the nature of the comprehensive plan, I don't think that it causes any issues leaving it as is, but I also think you could eliminate that language and still be in the same place.
Okay.
Um. Right, let's see.
Sorry,
No,
no.
no, no. Getting back to. what
Take a
we
beat.
No, no, no. All right, so going into map 7, which is gonna be your future land use map. We really highlighted, in blue, the transition area. The Irene Wakanda area, hopefully to grow those areas more. In the future of the county, bring more people into those areas. And then also just annotated, 1950 and the other, major streets. Along with adding the parks in the future land use.
Did you consider adding a transition area in the far northeast corner of the county?
No, so, I looked at Beersford's comprehensive plan and they had no desire to go past the interstate. So and I even called up and they said, unless there's some kind of industry that pops up across the street, we're not planning on digging, which fair.
But they are in favor of the proposed rezone to rural residential.
Right,
Okay.
yes,
All
I
right.
did get a letter from them.
Which I would think would be,
Right, because that's where
Additional-
their school zone is.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I mean,
but that's about the scale that they're interested in it growing. They wouldn't like us to put any blue on here and say, well, great, we're gonna do one rural residential and we're gonna hope to do some more and maybe some more commercial.
correct, it's more or less
Okay.
these are in the county mostly, or mainly, I mean, Irene, but, you know, Beersford is in a completely different county.
Unless another individual is gonna come forward and want to do another development, it's probably not gonna happen.
But we're not gonna write our ordinances or rezone our map.
Right, and once again, this is
encourage.
once every 5 years. You don't have to do this again.
Just one tiny one, because we're cleaning stuff up so nice, on number 3. For the guiding policies. Encourage that new development to be compatible with existing adjacent development should be encouraged that new development be compatible with, so just strike
So
the word to. Or you could say encourage new development, you can strike that or just strike to, but don't leave both in there. 'Cause
Page 17.
Page 17.
Page 17,
All right.
guiding policies, number 3. Encourage that new development to be compatible with existing adjacent development isn't a good sentence, so you should either make it a good sentence by taking out that or taking out to. That was all.
Okay.
Just
Oh, yeah,
grammatical, just grammatical.
okay.
Yeah.
Once again,
No
this
change
is,
in meaning at all.
this is once again more language to prevent that leapfrogging, you know. The,
And again, just thinking if somebody's, thinking about developing in our county. Grammatical things like that up just makes us look a little more professional, so it's good.
all right, yeah, and then, I mean, that's pretty much it. I mean, saying, hey, we're a farming community at the end of the day. We're gonna develop port cities more or less than just randomly throughout the county, so. Planning strategy, ensuring the health and safety of citizens, making sure setbacks, requirements, and for fire code. So if we have a new rural residential, having the cul-de-sacs, so they have turnaround points, all that fun stuff. We already do that as part of the ordinance. So, we're good there.
And this all seemed to align pretty well with the previous one, which I thought was very,
Yeah, and
Good
it's
balance.
updating, fixing, updating things that need to be updated and then adding things that need to be added. Enhancing the visual quality, once again, separating heavy industrial from residential use. If we throw in a residential area, don't put a heavy industrial area right next to it, probably separate them somehow. And then local government, governing and advisory boards for planning and implements. Nothing really changed in this area. We did, however, add in the joint zoning to the comprehensive plan. Allows us to do it, and then we did state in the very end, the state law fails to address, procedure necessary to terminate JJCs. We just threw it in the comprehensive plan in case we ever have a future joint jurisdiction with another town, so. That way it's in there. We can point to it, so.
good job.
Yeah. I mean, I'm a little brain rot from reading this about 20 times.
I think you read this a lot more than 20 times.
Yeah, you're not wrong, but yeah, so I mean, it's more or less just updating what needs to get updated. And then this is a living document. We can always add things to, say, in 5 years, like I said, if we have a giant housing boom or we have a giant industrial boom in the county, we can revisit the map and we can always just add things that we need to it. But this is more or less just the groundwork saying, hey, we're a farming community. We have parks, we have towns. So. Yeah. Any other questions? I know it's a lot. I tried to send it to you guys a couple days in advance, so.
I appreciate that. That's good.
Public comment?
I'm Suzanne Skirm. I live at 722 Lewis Street here in town. I appreciate the work that you've done on this document. I appreciate the environmental concerns that you have left in there. It was my understanding from the P and Z meeting that they wanted to cut the whole section on soils, which wouldn't have been a good thing. However, I do have a little concern on that section. It seems like the language for septic tank installation has been quite a bit watered down. In the old comprehensive plan, it says severe limitations indicated in yellow, that was on the old map, represent soil properties or site features that are so unfavorable or so difficult to overcome that special design, significant increases in construction costs and possibly increased maintenance are required. And the new one says, it's instead of severe limitation, very limited, and indicates that the soil has one or more features that are unfavorable for septic tank and installation. The limitations generally cannot be overcome, blah, 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 without all this stuff. And then somewhat limited soils in the new comprehensive plan, that replaces, where's that here? Somewhat, it replaces moderate limitations. And in the old comprehensive plan, it says moderate limitations represent soil properties or site features that are not favorable for the indicated use septic tank installation, and special planning, design, or maintenance is needed to overcome or minimize the limitations. In the new one, it says that very limited soils indicates that the soil has one or more features that are unfavorable for septic tank installation. The limitations generally cannot be overcome without major soil reclamation, special design, or expensive installation. Oh, I'm sorry. No, that was the very limited. The moderately limited in the new one is called somewhat limited. And it represents that the soil has features that are moderately favorable for septic tank installation. The limitations can be overcome or minimized by special planning, design, or installations. Well, it seems to me that that's giving permission to install a septic tank and system on soil that's really not suitable for that. And we have a prime example out at the river where there's putting in this 18-house development on land that's not suitable for septic tank development or installation. And I just think the language needs to be a little bit more severe. I mean, our county has a very unique geological profile as indicated in that map with the shallow aquifers. And a lot of the soil is not suitable for things like septic tanks. And I think we need to have that outlined in our comprehensive plan, because this is kind of a philosophy for the development of the county. And if we're just going to say, okay, well, you can put a septic tank in if you do this and this and this, what's going to happen? I mean, you just said we're a farming community. Are we going to have developments coming up all over the place because people are saying, well, maybe I can put a septic in here. So that's just my concern. I think it needs to be, the language needs to be a little bit stronger on that. Thank you. Thank you.
I have a question on that, just for my knowledge. Noah, and you both talked to the state. Did you say the state said that there was never a failure? When somebody requested on that soil testing?
So I did talk with them this morning, just, you know, very much so recent. It was when you call to get a new septic tank for a non-individual use house, right? It's, hey, this is my proposed septic tank. The state goes, all right, cool. These are the guidelines. Does it meet these guidelines for this area? And once again, it's a case by case basis. And then the state goes, yay or nay. And then if it doesn't meet the criteria, you have to upgrade it more.
Okay.
So the
They-
state has signed off.
Correct.
Okay,
They've,
And then
ne-
it's- and
they've
it-
never failed when you said due to these problems that are possible.
That I know of.
Yeah, no, what I was specifically saying is that the state has not reviewed a plan from Clay County since 2019.
But we also have, because it's for commercials. Yeah, and so like if an apartment building was to go up, that's when the septic tank system would have to get reviewed.
Right.
So when a private individual puts one in, it still has to get licensed installed.
That's
Correct.
correct, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So a
That's my
state
By-
certified septic installer has to do it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
And, or it's an uncontrolled system and you need to give your plans to the state.
correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so. Okay, I just
Yep,
wanted to
still,
clarify.
yeah, still getting regulated.
I wanted to clarify that for me and others.
Jerry Bartles, I live at 109 Linden Avenue here in town. I want to echo a little bit of what the lady before me said. I think changing, especially given the fact that in Clay County, nothing has ever been turned down in the last however many decades. Why would we soften the language? Apparently, we don't need to. And so softening the language is a moot point. We can keep the language as it was before if we haven't had any problems.
Anyone else? John?
Yeah. I don't know anything about septic systems, so I just want to try that. So, John Prescott, City of Milwaukee, City. I did have a few comments that I was going to kind of reference about some communication and the outreach to the entities during this planning process, which really just hasn't happened. And it's not a fault of Noah or Nick here. They're both in their roles, and I appreciate, in particular, Noah has reached out to the city to gather. But I'm going to point out a couple of things here that I think are updates or things we could do to our plan to make it better. That if we had this outreach and this help. So I'm going to talk about a couple different sections here. Section C, water facilities, and I appreciate the discussion here. And no, it's correct. Clay Rural Water System is certainly referenced in the plan, but it makes no mention of the city system. And to some degree, I understand that as the city system almost exclusively serves our city residents. But I would have thought that mentioning that 80% of our citizens in the county are served by the city water system is a point perhaps to bring up. With respect to Clay County citizens outside of city limits, it's also important to note that the city of Vermillion is the sole source of water for Clay Rural Water Service customers south of the city. Clay Rural Water System customers south of the city get their water through an interconnect with the city. To me, that's a point that impacts our county residents outside the city limits. And it does also reference two interconnects. I would think that would be a good point to say that the source of one of those is also the city of Vermillion's water system. Solid waste management, section E, and Commissioner Gilbertson raised this very question last week at the joint powers meeting where he is the county representative. Again, I think if we had had a communication input, this point would have been addressed. The proposed comprehensive plan suggests that the landfill will last until 2080. I would love that. We all love that. But that's not the case. I'm not sure that was even the case in the early 1990s when the landfill was opened. The current estimates are, we hope that we can get it to last until 2050, maybe 2060. I think this document's better served by noting the realistic estimates of the lifespan of the landfill as we know it today. Rural electric in section F. The plan does not reflect that the city of Vermillion does have defined electric service territory outside of city limits. Just as there's water facility section and a wastewater facility section, I think this section better lay facilities reference that Vermillion Line Power electrical service does provide electrical service to some rural properties outside of city limits. Again, I think communication would have helped a lot of this. Probably the one that is probably no surprise that I'm going to bring up is our about plan implementation. This is for the city the most problematic section, as a proposed planning document creates procedural requirements for zoning request. wouldn't the best practice be to discuss these steps with the municipality? A bigger question, I think, is if the comprehensive plan is the correct place to put procedural steps that will ultimately be a decision for the county commission. There are a number of challenges with the procedural steps. The last paragraph of page 22, which is entitled Joint Zoning, is very problematic. The statutory intent of SDCL 11-6 is that the city and county jointly exercise comprehensive zoning powers. The language in this paragraph conflicts with the statutory language and the clear intent, as it claims the county has the sole discretion to make this determination. It's about partnership. The top of page 3 makes a reference to constitutionally defensible. This doesn't seem to make sense, as sections 1A through 1E are SDCL statutory requirements. Section 1E references the feasibility and the timetable for extending municipal utilities to serve the future development areas, a required element. The county doesn't regulate any utilities. The county doesn't provide any utilities, and the city doesn't typically extend municipal utilities unless the property is annexed into the city. The provision of utilities is something that should be left to the respective utility providers and appropriate state regulators. A requirement like this simply wastes time and money. Section 2 on page 23 again conflicts with the statutory intent of it being a joint exercise of power. Section 5 on page 23 is incomplete. It references that joint action by the county and the city in adopting the ordinance shall constitute the agreement for joint zoning jurisdiction. Per SDCL 1-24-4, there should be a written agreement between the city and the county. The final paragraph on page 23 also needs some work. Again, SDCL 1-24-4, as I just noted, indicates that there should be a written agreement which includes duration and termination date. This contradicts the unilateral termination by either party in the proposed language. As mentioned, there are state statutes that facilitate joint jurisdiction, SDCL 11-6-10 through 11-6-12.1, as well as SDCL 1-24-2 through 1-24-9. Having the two entities meet, discuss, and work together to determine a solution is a better, more cooperative way to achieve a partnership versus placing guidelines and required steps in a planning document. As the first sentence of the proposed comprehensive plan states, and was referenced by Nick and others earlier, the comprehensive plan is a general guideline. Specific steps in municipal comprehensive plan requirements aren't consistent with that guideline. We would respectfully request that the language on page 23, starting with procedural requirements for joint zoning requests, be removed from the proposed county comprehensive plan.
John, I had a quick question for you, John. You mentioned I attended that meeting, and brought up the landfill, the lifespan. And I brought up the proposal of we need to be buying some land. And would you agree I was shot down from every side?
I don't mean to.
I mean, it sounds like you and
Chairman, but I'll just say there wasn't an overwhelming march in support of Mr. Gilbertson's comments.
I would not.
I would.
But it sounds like you and I agree that proposed lifespan is not accurate.
I would
That'd be fair?
definitely agree with that. I think
Okay.
we will see, and again, I mean, get off track, we are probably going to have to purchase some land simply as different cells are filled as we dig them out, just to even store some dirt. As that landfill expands, there's, I believe, 11 cells to begin with, and they open at different rates. And I think 6 is one of those that are open. So by math, we're halfway through that. So
Right.
I would love the landfill last till 2080, but I don't think that's realistic.
Travis can speak to what land values are doing, so I just thought now's the time to address this. So.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Morning, I'm Jerry Wilson, live at 30959 Frog Creek Road, 43 years. I appreciate all the comments of the other people who have spoken, and I agree with them. In reference to John's observations, as one of the people who helped draft the original comprehensive plan for the joint jurisdiction. We worked long and hard to reach understanding, and many times we compromised, but after 2 years, we got a pretty good job done. And it illustrates that cooperation and communication are key. And I'm glad you're holding this hearing to let people express their views. When I think of a comprehensive plan, the word vision comes to mind. As you know, this world is a polluted world. South Dakota is, mostly because of our terrain and our low population, in pretty good shape still, but we want to keep it that way. And if that is our vision, that our grandchildren will live in an environment at least as clean and good and healthful as ours, then I think that it's essential that we are very about protecting it. And so, you know, any watering down of language concerns me. And I understand that the soil types and the septic feasibility are being removed. Is that correct?
What do you mean by?
So, well,
Did I get this right, David? Was it limitations on
Oh,
building limitations?
yeah, so that was more or less a, hey, it was saying the county regulates, like contractors and buyers. We're not about,
I'm talking about maps.
Yeah.
right,
Are there any maps deleted from this proposal?
yes, it was, because it was gonna be, it was like a flood map. It was like a basement flood map, pretty much.
It was a soils map showing building limitations for residential developments with basements and small commercial developments.
Right. And that's between a buyer and a contractor,
Mhm.
not the county.
Well, Didn't involve septics. Didn't.
No,
The
no.
septic one
But the
remained.
soil types and septic absorption are not changed at all.
No, that remained in.
Yes.
That all
Yep.
remained
Yep.
as is.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, that's important.
Yep.
So, by the way, I like your new digs. Haven't had a chance to visit, since you had all these fancy new desks and everything. That's very nice. But thank you all for your work.
That's a sign that we're behaving ourselves if Jerry doesn't have to check in on us very often.
is there anyone else? Hearing none, I'll close the public comment period. Any further questions?
So I think, my only question would be, there were several little catches, style and form things. I had a few recommendations for some additional park outlines to include, or public land outlines to include on the maps. Does anybody have any issues with any of the style and form or, minor map changes that were proposed today? Or could we incorporate those? Because if so, I'll move.
With those changes?
Yeah,
Those considered major changes.
I thought about that all meeting. I think with just those changes, I would say no. Okay, I think that those are minor changes, which allows us to, if approved, set a second hearing. Now, I want to do some further research to ensure that I was confident in that. What I'm finding today makes me believe that that would not constitute a major or substantial change. Everything you just discussed. Okay.
I believe those are positive things.
Yeah, I mean, because most of it was just, the star and,
Yep.
it's an enter, you know,
So,
Additional information.
and then you're just adding more parks. I mean, I don't see how that would be a downside.
yep, so there's also listing those additional infrastructure services that are available. Is that something that is considered
Just mention that one more time.
So there was also some mentions of listing some of the other services that also serve the county. So City of Vermillion Power, City of Vermillion Water. We still move to a second reading and with included at a second reading.
If we incorporate that as well, I would say that now we're moving into more of a major change. I would say as a point of being conservative, which is necessary when we're dealing with planning and zoning regulation. My recommendation would be if we're adding that, if we're taking anything, that type of changes, I would say that the wise move, the conservative move would be to constitute that as a major change and set it for, again, a first hearing.
So, I mean, if anything, we can say in
Yeah.
3 months, add 2.
And so that could happen even immediately after.
Right.
We could pass this so that we have an active comprehensive plan. And then we could propose those slightly more major questions. I think, I hear John's concerns and I don't have enough of a understanding of the legal parameters around these things to understand how I should vote related to whether that should be included or not, or whether it should be modified in some way. So I think that certainly any changes to that section of the ordinance seems like it would be a major change.
Correct.
How would the commission feel about revisiting that?
Well, like Noah said, this is a living document. We can revisit it at any time.
So,
I think the main thing is we just get those minor
Yeah, like
typos
yeah,
and
hitting enter,
get those things cleaned up and pass it with those minor changes, and then we can address
those other concerns?
what you want later on.
Okay. So then I move to incorporate the minor changes into this draft of the comprehensive plan and to move it to a second reading.
That'll be the last meeting of the month.
Yes, sir. Yeah, because there want to be enough days between today and next meeting.
So,
Works out perfect. I'll be on vacation.
I see how you do.
So I have a motion
I'll second.
and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All same sign, motion passes.
Thank you for your guys' time today.
Thanks, Bill.
So then to follow up on that, I think your office doing some digging and I think some communications with the city about their interpretation of state laws relates to those sections and just getting some clarity, or at least clarity on where there's disagreement so that we can understand that clearly too. Because I think that does seem important enough that we should probably at least consider it again at a future.
I agree, and I'm not sure where that language came from, whether I'm assuming CCOG drafted this language, and I'm curious if it's
So
elsewhere.
everything within that, what would have been that chapter 10, the kind of final stuff here. From the 2022 document that was brought back then and was almost passed, we had just left this section as was. I mean, at the time that it was brought then, if there was no major concerns with that at the time then we would have just kept that as is. But again, that can easily be talked about, reworked and at any point in future or things such as that.
Okay. And then I think, I would certainly be interested in adding to a future meeting agenda, those changes that I proposed, some of which John Prescott reiterated, I think that they are better at at detailing exactly what those might be. But I would be excited to bring that up as an addendum to this at some future meeting. So if you would have those conversations with the city about what they would have shared and added, had they had the opportunity.
And I'll go ahead and reach out with them. And then also reach out with Clayrol Water more exactly, hey, what are some low points that we need to stuff like that. So,
That'd be great. I think
know,
having that on the
so
right.
like substations for,
Yeah.
Clay Union, stuff like that. It's
Yeah.
possibilities of things we can add into the maps.
Yeah, I think the more clear and accurate this represents the reality on the ground, the better that is for everybody. So. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Brent? The fuel quote?
Fuel quote, Rubik's $1 cheaper.
Move to approve the low bid for Brewix.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes.
And then I had Alteg, they inspected, that two structures that they had to inspect. And,
I
one,
didn't make the agenda.
oh, I didn't, can't talk about, okay,
We'll have to do it next Tuesday,
okay.
but
Yeah, we didn't even add it.
I know we didn't add it.
Yeah.
I was just wondering if there was an executive session that we might need to talk about it on.
If there is a need for an executive session, we can have one, if it constitutes,
We'll just put it on next meeting,
Next meeting, okay. Will do. All right, thank you,
then I'll talk to you after the meeting.
okay. Anything else?
I don't think so. Thank you.
Thanks, Brent.
You're up, Andy.
It's on for the meal proposals, correct?
Yep.
Okay. What we did was we had three proposals received after our RFP, one from Correct Choice, one from Summit, and one from Trinity. And the committee reviewed them. Glenn was on the committee. And basically, we came down to Correct Choice and Summit being almost even money for the cost of the meals. But with Summit's background, they're more established. They've been in business quite a while. Correct Choice is just starting up. They have one other county they work with. They have a good proposal. I would have been happy to go with them, but I think with everything being so equal, Summit was the one to go with. Committee recommended Summit. If you have any questions, I brought them all with me though, but that's a recommendation from the committee.
I trust.
A lot of input over there.
All right.
I move to accept the recommendation of the committee.
Second. A motion and a second. Any further discussion?
I was just gonna comment, the next step in this would then be contract negotiations, so we don't sign off on their proposal. At that point, we would negotiate, and there's a few things, I mean, they're at our target population, the money's neck and neck, and I would like to maybe try to bring some of their tiers were offset just a little bit. I wanna try to match one of the other tiers with Summit's price, and so we'll talk to them about that, see if we can get a calorie content and a price per meal that really works for us in our facility.
At the current plant staffing levels, what is our target population right now?
40. Kind of looking at, hoping at 40. We don't really want to exceed 80% of our bed space. But we can go over 40, depending on the population. If we have certain people, we might have 3 beds available for an adult male, non-violent sentenced offender, and we could fit more in and it wouldn't hurt us. So it always depends on classification.
And what is the final bed count? Is it 55?
54 plus work release. So 54 in general housing.
Okay, 54 in general housing, and then how many work release beds?
There's 8 beds in
Okay,
work
all right.
release.
I was thinking it was over 60, but then I was like, well, that's.
60 counting those. Generally, we didn't really consider work release in the meal proposal because they're gone and we don't feed them most part of the day.
Is it impossible for us to do more than 8 work release?
Impossible? No, I could squeeze cots in or something, but
Okay.
I don't really see that very often, you know, to see that many work release being in there. Unless we get them from other counties. So sorry, I interrupted during your discussion part, so you haven't voted yet.
So any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Will save sign, motion passes.
So they just provide employees then, or?
Yeah, we provide the kitchen, they provide utensils and employees. And they're looking
Ordering
at
and stuff.
having, what's that?
Food ordering, I'm assuming,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, they
Like
provide all the materials, the actual food that they cook. We provide the place.
They
And the
pay
large
them-
appliances.
They pay the employees.
Yeah. Yeah, they pay the wages, their employees, although we have to approve who they hire.
Okay.
And then, so we'll work with their employee. They'll hire a kitchen manager and Summit's, depending on our population, their proposal is 2 full-time employees. And then, you know, they'll always make sure there's somebody here. So if they quit, that's not our problem. Somebody will be here. And, that's one of the advantages that Summit had that the committee liked was that they have, their jails around they can pull staff from to serve us. So we shouldn't have any downtime. Thanks.
Thanks, Andy. Did we have any vouchers this time, Karen?
No, none this time.
Anything for Clay County Port?
Nothing new.
No building project updates. Oh, we did get our panel. You wanna discuss? Really? Right, Andy? I understood that correct, right? That we got our panel?
The electrical panel?
We got the electrical panel?
Yes, the panel's here. They're hooking it up at this week.
Hot diggity.
They showed up on Friday.
What were the concrete panels, outside panels that were unloaded this morning?
Those are, they call them monument signs. They'll be out kind of by the driveways
Oh, okay,
and say, you know, Clay County Law Enforcement Center.
okay.
Decorative, they're, you know, as you can see, they match the buildings.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering if there was a section that in the back or something that wasn't done or.
Nope.
Looks
That'll
like-
be- those-
Whoa, we better patch that hole.
Yeah, yeah.
On that,
It's not a Hollywood set where it's just the front.
See the one at, like, for example, New Clay Union Electric has one out there,
Yep.
Polaris has one out there, it'd be like that.
on that panel, so are they just physically installing it as far as getting it actually hooked up? That's later on yet, or?
No, they're doing that right now.
They're doing
They
it
are
now.
hooking it up.
Yep. I've seen photos of them working on it since it came in. Yeah, it showed up at the site, so once it's here, we got it and it's hooked up, so that means they'll be able to, get the chiller fired up, so I don't know if you've gone by and seen the, outside the doors, they've got temporary air conditioning units pumping cool air into temporary plywood doors, they'll be able to get those out, fire up the chiller. Once all that's going, they can start testing. So they haven't been able to test, because they can't test, they can't even give us a move-in date. So they call it building commissioning. Travis probably already explained those to you. Building commissioning is testing everything, to make sure everything works.
Okay.
Before warranty period starts.
And that's a 5 to 6 week process.
So yeah, a lot of the electronics, they don't want to fire up on a temporary power, you know, you burn things up. And so it's a good thing that that's here, and you know, it should accelerate, you know, the final stages.
Anything for joint jurisdiction, Dave?
No, we kind of talked about it.
Okay. Any other commissioner reports?
I think, the only thing I'd report is I did attend the, legislative summer property tax, meeting up in Sioux Falls. I spoke, from my position as a Clay County Commissioner about the challenges we, have with funding. Primarily I tried to make the case that there isn't fat to cut, and that was in the face of, I think a goal of 50% cuts to property taxes. Some of the discussion was, coming up with plans for how we can cut our budget by 50%, things like that. So, I just wanted to make sure that they were understanding those were cuts to law enforcement. They didn't look like a bunch of defund the policers, but that's kind of the way they were talking. So, but I went up there to make as strong a case as I could for why we are responsible, because I really think we are responsible with our funding. But I encourage everyone to engage with your legislators and for preparation for a legislative season next year that it may have some real hard pressure on us. You know, we have in the neighboring county, you know, one of our representatives, we have a little bit of District 18 here. So Julie Off sat down with the Yankton County Auditor and one of their commissioners and spent 4 hours going line by line through their budget. And Julie Ock then ended up being one of the strongest advocates for the responsibility that the county government is right now exhibiting. So I think that she joined that body expecting to find a lot of fat to cut, a lot of wasteful spending at the county and the municipal level. And she did the homework to see that that was not the case. And she did a great job sharing that in the body. So I would, you know, I think that we might want to consider inviting our District 17 legislators to go through a similar process, just so that they're well informed when they go into those discussions. So just wanted to share that.
Kevin, anything?
Drone committee is tomorrow, so I'll have something maybe next week. Other than that, Wakanda kind of is taking a break on their planning right now until I think this month we're meeting again. So I'll have more in August there, but other than that, fair is going pretty good. We got a lot of things lined up, so.
You heard my report on the landfill, so that was not fun.
No.
So that'll be, those are quarterly, so September, I think, and
What I'm recalling, we had, so we had a resignation that was presented to us, right? So is there, do we need to put out a notice that need to fill that seat, or?
We should, yeah, we haven't.
Okay. Sounds like there's some important issues that you guys are gonna be wrestling
Well, I
with,
mean,
so
we gotta-
make sure you're fully
gotta
staffed.
do something.
Yeah.
Well, there's always issues, there's just no money to buy land. That's.
Well,
We're gonna have a heck of a home.
I can see it from my house.
Cause we looked into it 8 years ago. Buying some ground, was adjacent to it.
There's a lot of rare earth metals in that pile. We gotta start mining it.
You're gonna have to.
Already
It
is.
It is. Fees. Like what I pay in garbage for the rentals, you guys know this, but it hasn't really gone up in 6 or 7 years.
No.
Not substantially. It's basically the same, so. I think there's room to bump up the fees out there. Gotta start somewhere. So, and then I do have a meeting for the Vermillion Basin. I think that's my calendar, Thursday, I think.
And clarify on the land too, because when we looked into buying property, it was solely on Clay County to buy it.
Really?
Yeah.
How'd we get? Wow.
We had a bad divorce.
So much for the joint powers.
That's what that was the impression that was given. Now, that's why I said, ask and look into it.
And they're like, we'll just keep piling it as high as you want. It's in Clay County. We don't care. Oh, yeah. Okay. Interesting. I'd like to understand that. Deeply.
Sure. Vermillion Butte. We have budget discussion, but I'm gonna call a 5-minute recess before we do that. Need you, Sylvester. Cause that is a long time.
Uh-oh, all right.
At least go stand up.
I'll go upstairs.
So we got sent the budget yesterday. No,
So I
I know
read your
nobody's
notes.
got
Yeah.
a chance to really go through it, so just.
It's very overwhelming.
Yeah, I think. One way to put it.
this point, we have the opportunity to discuss it, but not really offer much opinion.
No, I think if, maybe if you want to give some more context, maybe on like,
Yeah, we'll let Carrie give context.
yeah.
Yeah, I kind of explained in my notes section with the budget packet, it's looking pretty ugly this year, to say the least. There's a lot of reasons for that, the last several years we've gotten bombarded with, building repairs and renovations and, software costs that we had no other choice but to buy some new software. Additional, personnel needs that are coming up for the jail, the state's attorney's office, the facilities management, and granted, the inmate boarding that we will bring in, offsets most of those jail costs. Additional, inmate meals, I could go on and on. There's just, we have an ambulance purchase coming up that's considerably more than what we used to pay for those. When they were, 110, 120,000, and now they're 361. We're a little bit ahead of schedule with that purchase. According to my bookwork, we weren't really due for that until 2028. But they have had some real issues with that ambulance, and so, do you?
Still gonna be 27 before they get it.
Right. I did put it in next year's budget because if it comes in at the end of the year,
We save for it every year.
Yeah.
we didn't have
We-
it obviously saved for though, because
So,
we
Yeah,
weren't
it's
saving
good
enough
thing,
for one thing, because the prices have gone up astronomically. So we didn't have everything set aside that we needed to for that. And prices have gone up, so there was no way to really plan for that. By the time that we finish renovating the courtroom area and the safety center, once the sheriff's office and the jail move out to the new building, we will have easily doubled what it would have cost for a new courthouse at the time that we did the bond. So there's that additional expense that we have coming up next year for those renovations. Again, it's kind of a one-time thing, like the ambulance, that when it's done, but we still have the cost right now. Some of it is grant money for the court, but a lot of it is not too, so. I could continue, I could go on and on, but we do have another large software purchase coming up for the Director of Equalization, and I think that she's the last one out of all the county offices that has to do the conversion. We don't have a choice for that. Again, our current software is not going to be available anymore. Just things that we have encountered that we are required to pay for and have to figure out how.
I noticed that hers was 30.5%. That was the
That
line,
is
Sharon was
software,
the
yeah.
software,
Software,
yeah,
yeah,
data processing line. 110,000.
yep.
Were you able to go through and break out all the increases over last year?
Mhm.
And
I
so-
can. I didn't have time to do that.
No, yeah, I understand.
Yeah, I just got the
started
last of
Last night,
the department budgets yesterday, and really just wanted to get it out to you so you kind of have an idea what we're looking at, but yeah, if this is something that we need to cut or something that we need to discuss an opt-out on, I hate those words, but the deadline for that is July 15th, so we've really just got 2 weeks to figure it out.
Yeah. And the process for that, do we need to have a first and second reading on an opt-out?
It's just a resolution.
Just a resolution.
Yeah.
So we would have one more meeting when we could,
And it is.
do that. And there's no requirement that we use all the funds in the opt-out. It just allows us additional budget authority. And we have to have our budget finalized by end of September.
We have to adopt a provisional budget by the end of this month, and then the final budget by the end of September.
Okay.
Yeah,
So we could cut everything that we intended to fund
We could.
with an opt-out, but we still would have that option on the table as long as we pass a resolution prior to July 15th, right? That is a potential way forward. We could say, hey, we don't want to guarantee we need to cut $3.2 million for, from our budget. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's a lot. I lose sleep over this budget every year for at least a good week or two, and I put together the spreadsheet yesterday and it was like instantly sick to my stomach. It's
Well,
like,
and
how,
you
how
know,
do we do this?
a
And
few dynamics that I maybe have just been misunderstanding a little bit, but I felt that we were spending a lot, so we were paying on our bond and we're also spending a lot to house prisoners elsewhere. And so I was expecting that we're not gonna make a lot of money from the jail, but at least we should have pretty much all that savings of housing our prisoners elsewhere. Once the
And
jail keeps
that's-
functioning, especially if we bring in a few other prisoners, but
that doesn't show on the expense section, but it does show in the revenue. So if you look at the revenue spreadsheet, you'll see a pretty dramatic increase in those areas.
Inmate transport is gone.
Right, we've had some decreases there, or will have some decreases there. Yeah,
Yeah.
boarding won't be there anymore. We'll have the revenue on the other side.
Staff cost material.
Yep.
Adding staff and then the inmate meals. And then I gave,
Yeah.
budget I gave Carrie yesterday had an error that I corrected this morning. So
Okay.
I've had that.
I sent out a quick last minute, correction to that, Andy.
It didn't
So,
help.
You know, things I don't know if Brent's budget included the road for the grain elevator.
I was gonna ask
I don't
about
know.
next, yeah.
Um,
And if what, we still haven't put that out for bids yet either, right?
right. So, I mean, that's another thing that we have coming up and
So another area, a dynamic that I thought I was seeing last year, and maybe I was misinterpreting, was that we ended up with good cash balances in the highway department, to a large degree because we didn't have to clear hardly any snow. And
yeah.
then that seemed to occur again this last winter, so I was wondering why that didn't help us.
And it could, I mean,
Maybe it did, and we'd be in worse shape,
overall,
so.
overall, yeah, we typically end up a little better than what we expect, at the end of a year. And this last year, we ended up pretty on par with what we thought.
Okay,
I mean, right about 15%, so it's pretty on par with what we thought,
okay.
but
So the end of year projections that we were working with last year ended up being about accurate.
yeah.
Okay.
And we did have over the last several years, we have that commissioner's contingency to help cover some of the offices that go over budget throughout the year with unexpected expenses. We've used that up for years running now, probably 5-6 years running, and have done considerable budget supplements over the last several years. So that again depletes our cash reserves at the end of the year too. So if we end up not spending all of our budget countywide, we still have supplemented in some areas. So you're,
Okay.
kind of splitting hairs there. I don't know. I think it's a lot of just getting bombarded with one-time expenditures that are really large and all of these building improvements and renovations that we haven't really had a choice to do. Some of that was covered with funds that we were able to set aside, but then we weren't able to use those funds for other things too. So, you're kind of, we've done a good job managing the big expenses that have come up, but it's catching up. And I think once these are over and the dust has kind of settled with all the renovations and the new building and things, we'll probably be in better shape. We also, didn't do an opt-out last year, which we got by, so maybe it's catching up to us. I don't know. Yeah,
Both voted for it. I broke with them. I was like, no,
it's tough. It's tough to predict what the next year is gonna bring. That's the way the budget always is. It's hard to predict. Most of the time we can hold it down, but we're getting to the point where our population's growing too, and we're just having to do more and more services with less, and we need the staff, and so you can't run a jail without the extra jailers or the extra cleaning staff. Michael's office has extra demands, so he needs extra personnel, and it's kind of compounding. Yeah, it's a tough one.
Do you remember what was the dollar amount we had on, was it six something?
It's 600. Plus 300 for the, and I think it's an 80-20 grant on the courthouse security.
25 for the
25.
county match, yeah.
So 75-25, and that's a $300 max on that one overall budget.
Yeah, 315.
So
You know, and then if Brent, I guess we should have asked him, but those, mitigation on the bridges. You know, that was gonna be, if that's in his budget, that's a lot. I think that was $1 million just on the bridges.
Cause that one's a reimbursements, we gotta put the money out for it, right?
No, that was our share.
Oh, $1 million would be our share. if we
And I
get
think I'm
approved for
shooting
all of them?
low. Yeah,
Wow.
it was a
we're gonna
lot,
get
cause there were 6
$4
bridges.
million bucks?
yes,
Yeah.
and they were all a million-ish apiece.
Yeah, yep. Yep, oh, that's right, that's right.
Which bridge is Dawson, Dakota?
And then there was 4 in the county, like Tabernacle Road on North University.
And that's
Yeah,
one
it's
where
bottom.
if we win it, FEMA feels that it's a good return on investment, that we're gonna save money, putting that much money into it in the
Oh, we
long
are,
term.
because otherwise you're gonna lose the bridge.
Yep, and we're gonna have to pay for that.
Yeah. And I know Travis has been on the commission as long as I've been auditor longer, but, you know, we've done a lot over the last 15 years to fix up the bridges and the roads, the things that, you know, we're playing catch up on those too. And I think we're finally getting in a more decent place with that.
We saw that
So,
in the bridge inspection
Yeah.
this year, you know, I
Yeah,
was really
overall,
pleased.
pretty good.
We're doing good,
So we're getting there.
but
Well,
Yeah.
it's the costs that never go away. And, you know, I don't want anybody to take it the wrong way, but wages never go away and they only increase.
Right. Health insurance, building insurance.
I bet it's double from when I started what wages are right as far as county budget.
Yeah. Building insurance too, that's gonna go up a lot
Yeah.
when we have to insure that new building dramatically. And the insurance company is requiring an increase on this building because it's not up to the value that it should have been. So they're bumping it up for us, then we'll be covered for what we need to, but it's going up.
yeah, if everything would just stay under that 3% cap,
Right?
you know, then we
That
can
would be
manage that,
fabulous.
come up with a sustainable system and.
And TIF 6 was dissolved, so we were able to take that growth next year. All the revenue numbers reflect that in the property tax revenue, and we're still coming up short.
But that's what,
So-
140-ish or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it helps. But that's.
It helps, but not
not
enough.
a problem.
Was that the whole TIF or was that just part of the TIF, the 140?
I'd have to go back and look. I believe it was. We added that value in, so I believe it was the whole thing, but I'd have to go back and look. I had to get together with Department of Revenue and have them tell me how to do that, because I have not done that before,
Yeah.
so.
I was up at that property tax discussion. I ended up having lunch with Linnea and a couple other assessors, and they're saying this, what we're seeing up here, this formula for how we're supposed to interpret SB 216. We have not seen that formula before. It's really great to have it, like when you add back in growth, when you add back in
Yeah.
discretionary, like, yeah. Is that
Yeah,
part of
I've-
the part that's capped, or is it not?
I got a lot of help from the Department of Revenue on that, pictures and screenshots and things, and so, you know, I was able to figure that in, but yeah, I don't know, and I don't know what this new property tax bill is gonna do for us. Or do to us. You know,
Make this harder.
yeah,
I mean, there are some discussions about sales tax, you know, and that's the only realistic additional funding that anybody's talking about, but there were some talks about that and a few different models for that, so that's something to learn about. I mean, I do think that it's more revenue.
But that, the way they wanna do that though is not increasing our funding.
No, it's
Just
it's
increasing.
yeah, relieving property. Yeah, well, yeah, yep. No, that's correct. And the people on that body definitely believe that. Yeah.
So, and as far as the road, because I didn't mention that, I found out Friday. The state thought we were building it next year. So they haven't done anything. So it will be next year now.
And that's been communicated to Southeast Farmers Co-op?
I haven't talked to Merle yet. I need to.
Okay,
So-
those goes, I'm not.
Yeah, I'll talk to him. Cause we sent the information to him in March. Our engineer did all the drawings and the plans and.
I was wondering about
She
the difference in speed between their work on that project that,
She didn't know anything about it, hadn't received anything, but knew who it came from, and then all of a sudden knew about it when I was talking to her, because she found the email. At least I'm assuming she found the email, because she sure knew a lot while we were talking. For not receiving anything.
so if the facility intends to be operational this fall,
It will be.
so if the facility is operational this fall and we have all the truck traffic that they're expecting on the current road system that we have out there, that seems like a way, something that could increase the costs of rebuilding the road out there. Right?
It won't increase it, because they're gonna tear the road out.
All right, right.
It's that short
not gonna
stretch
make that-
there, speed is what kills the gravel road, and
Yeah,
they're gonna be going 20, 25 miles an hour on that thing.
now that
It's
is
not a-
something we should probably do, is post that road to 25.
Yeah. Yep.
Before we forget.
Yep.
Can you put that on the?
Resolution
agenda?
for,
Yeah.
for the speed limit, okay?
They're gonna be, they'll be loaded coming in, so you're going slow. Going off, there'll be the maniacs that'll wanna race out of there, but
And that'll be on 313th and 456.
Is that a sign that says aircraft?
Yeah. We may want to talk about the stop signs also. Because right now, the stop signs are on the north-south road. Can we move those? Andy, do you know? Would we be able to put the stop signs at that intersection coming from the north and coming from the east, headed west? Can they be like that, or do they have to be across?
Gravel roads?
Yeah, do they have to be across from each other, or?
I've never seen one that wasn't across from each other or a four-way.
That's what I'm just
I don't know.
asking.
I know you can't put one at the state highway, the state's gonna weigh in on that.
Correct.
Couldn't, but I don't know, I'd have to look at that.
I didn't know if we could make that the main.
There is one on Highway 3. When you go out of Akron and then you turn on Highway 3 to go into the Mars, there's one here and one here.
But that's a T.
No, it's
No,
not.
It's not?
The traffic coming south does not have to stop,
Correct.
but going,
North.
or going
Or
south
south,
stops,
But north does,
but north doesn't.
right, yep, weird.
It's weird.
But nothing can come from the west. That's where it's the T.
Ponca's got that in the middle of town, they got a three-way stop.
Yeah.
Yes, they do. That is true.
Yeah, right when you come in.
I mean, it's something we should look at. And we can do that on our road tour that we haven't done yet. So we need to set
what
that.
if we
up.
could put a sign when they're coming out that says no right turn, cause we don't wanna make them that sharp turn to get back to the highway.
Right.
We wanna make them go back out. to
There's
the
gonna be a
east.
sign, and I've told them all that. We want
Okay.
them going back back east.
Yeah.
To the corner.
Yep.
And then north or south to the highway. We want them to stay on, if
Yeah,
we can.
right.
Now, there's gonna be some truck traffic that's gonna go straight east because the fields are over there.
I'm gonna divert you back to budget conversations.
I was wondering how far we were ranging. So nice to have the Open Government Commission right here in the room.
Parliamentarian.
There you go.
But I just wanted to mention the road just for budget this year for next, how that's gonna work. But there wouldn't be a payment next year. It's got the Reed loan and the grant,
Well,
so the payment would be for 27.
we still.
Actually, I
we
think
still
they're gonna want monthly payments on that Reed loan.
Is that what it is?
Yep, monthly payments.
Okay, so that's it. Okay, new rule. Anybody that can help can talk. Everybody else has to stay quiet. So yeah, so pour over it. And if you could get us where the increases came from.
Yeah, yeah, I can add a column to the individual department spreadsheet where there's a page for each department. Can add a column to that.
So we need to decide by next meeting if we're doing opt-out or not.
By the 15th, so.
By the
Yeah, it's a
15th.
special meeting.
So yeah,
Yep.
so keep the 15th available.
Yeah, keep it available for a special meeting if we need to.
Well, and I don't have the 15th, I can't remember.
It doesn't have to be the 15th.
Yeah, I was just gonna
Anytime
say, yeah,
before
if
the
we're gonna
15th.
do that, we might want to do it on like Monday for me or us that.
Yeah, any. Things for the budget? I do have an executive session topic.
I don't, so.
Good. It's better when you don't.
That's, anything else on there? What's the,
That's it.
what variety, what
Personnel.
flavor? Okay,
Personnel.
and that is,
I'm just looking it up. That'd be for. It'd be 125-2 subsection 1.
okay, I move to go into executive session for 125-2-1.
Subsection 1.
Subsection 1 for personnel matters.
Second. A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. We're in executive.
Second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion passes. Nothing else, so if anybody doesn't, take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion passes. We're adjourned.